Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Alan.
And you are officially tuned in to the GG Dispatch. Each week on Tuesday, bright and early, we consolidate the week's biggest headlines and gaming news. Whether you're listening in on your commute, during your workout, or you just have us on in the background, we want to thank you for listening in. Speaking of thanks, another thank you to the kind folks at Audio Technica for providing the microphones that both Alan and I are using, the AT2020 USB-X. Whether you're just starting out on your content creator journey or you're a seasoned pro, Audio Technica has the products for you. Alan, how you doing? How was your weekend?
I'm doing good. Weekend was pretty chill. I'm a big sports fan, so I was enjoying watching the NFL draft. A lot of people find it probably boring, but for me, it's kind of exciting kind of to see a lot of the players that you kind of watch going through college, then come up through the ranks and what teams they end up on. So that's pretty much what I did most of my weekend. How about you?
Well, before we get to my weekend, I'm curious. I've never been, really big into sports. I think when I was young, I watched the 49ers and the Cowboys take turns winning the Super Bowls in the 90s. But really beyond that, I'm not really super invested in the NFL or anything. So I'm just curious, from this most recent draft, was there somebody that you were following? Was there a bet that you had made, or were you just kind of watching to see, which team got who? I'm just curious, were there any surprises in the draft over the weekend?
Yeah, so for me personally, obviously I have my favorite team, which is the Las Vegas Raiders. I've been a fan for most of my life, so I kind of like them before they got to Las Vegas. I'm not super stoked that they're in Vegas, but
Sure.
billionaires going to do what billionaires going to do and move the teams around. So for me, it was mostly following that and hoping that we could get some good young players for our roster, specifically a quarterback. And kind of the surprise of the draft was that basically all of the top quarterbacks were gone within the first hour, which is the first 12 picks or so, which is pretty early in the draft. Most people did not expect it to go that way, especially because some of the teams I chose already kind of had their own established quarterback. So by the time they got to us, it was kind of oh wait, that was our position of real need. We need a quarterback. So what are they going to do now? But I was happy with getting a really good player from the University of Georgia, tight end. It'll complement our roster well because we already have a really good tight end. It's a nice dual threat there. And the rest of the draft are solid for the team as well. And I also like to watch from my university, to see where our players go to, even though they're not necessarily going to the team that I watch in the pros. That's what I really watch for.
Interesting. And so, again, I'm as a total layman and novice to all of this. So typically, you would think that obviously you want to have strong players in every position, but quarterback seems pretty central to the success of
yeah, it's a fundamental
roles.
position. If you don't have an elite quarterback, you're not winning squad.
Yeah, and so I guess I'm just interested why it's a surprise why the really high rated quarterbacks would go first. Why wouldn't that be expected? Why would a team? Is it because, like you said, they had established quarterbacks already?
Yeah.
So,
It's
they've got
based
a
on
Brady or whatever. They're not going to go grab a new college quarterback, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's based on the team's needs. And a lot of these teams seemed like they needed other positions rather than quarterback. One had just signed the Atlanta Falcons. They had signed Kirk Cousins, an established quarterback, 4-year deal, $100 million.
Sure.
So then you're gonna draft this kid coming out, and typically that rookie contract, so your first contract is about roughly 5 years. So
Right.
it's what, he's gonna sit on the bench for the first 4 years of his contract? It didn't make sense. Why wouldn't you go get a player that better equips your team to use that brand new shiny quarterback you just signed in the offseason?
Yeah.
So that was really the surprise of why are these teams taking quarterbacks when you would think they would have gone at a different position of need.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense really for them to be second string because as the recruited,
they're getting paid well.
they want to hit the ground running in the professional league, right? So they want to be able to show off what they're doing, and so probably that person's agent is what the hell, what are we doing? Like, we're not going to be sitting on the bench for 4 years. To your point, like we want to be able to go out there and help win games and kind of build that legacy, so that by the time the next draft comes around, as a free agent or whatever, they have more leverage to demand like a more lucrative contract, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Um, so for me, I, just we just kind of ran a few errands, did some shopping, checked out this kind of cool local garden here in San Diego. Had some downtime, but something that popped up. My wife texted me and was like, "Look at this," and that was the fact that the Lord of the Rings films in extended and beautiful 4K or ultra high def are coming back to the theaters for a limited time from June 8th through the 10th. And it just so happens to be right around my birthday. And so we,
Oh,
we,
nice
yeah,
timing.
yeah, just a few days after my birthday, actually. And so we were like, let's do it. And so I just ordered our tickets like the whole weekend, so Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 p.m. showing Saturday, Sunday, and then 7 p.m. showing on Monday. And it's just going to be just a straight run of the greatest trilogy ever made. Asterisk, of course, like in my opinion. Um, and yeah, so I'm super stoked about that. A lot of people are really excited about it. I know there are certain areas that are doing like IMAX and Dolby and some other cool stuff. Like I wasn't really
Oh man, Lord of the Rings in IMAX.
I know. I was, and that's the thing is like I wasn't really kind of digging around for that because the theaters that were doing IMAX are a bit more out of the way, um, at least for me. But then afterwards, after I got my ticket and stuff, I'm like, oh man, like maybe I should have done the IMAX. But then, of course, everybody's flocking to these tickets, so and it's only running for 3 days, so it's a pretty in demand event from Fathom. But anyways, if you haven't heard and you're hearing it here, happy to help. But yeah, go grab your ticket because chances are it's going to be slim pickings depending on where you're at. So um, yeah, pretty excited about that. What's your
Are you
what's
gonna
your
see all three of them like back to back to back on those days?
Yeah, exactly. So Saturday will be Fellowship, Sunday will be Two Towers, and then Monday will be Return of the King. Exactly. So
Yeah.
that Monday night's going to be a long night because it's going to be, extended Return of the King, which is like 4 hours and change.
Yeah, you
And it
gotta take a day
starts
off on Tuesday.
and it starts at 7 p.m. Yeah, I might have to do that. Um, so yeah, but that'll be a good time. But I have to ask, which is your favorite of the trilogy?
That's always such a good question. Hmm.
While you mull that over,
Like,
I'll
yeah,
let
yeah.
you
Let me mull. Let me
you
mull.
you you mull on that. Mine's Two Towers. I I really enjoy Two Towers. I enjoy the Theoden arc. Just the drama of all these like Shakespearean actors in that particular set of scenes. Really, like when Gandalf comes back and exorcises Saruman from him and everything, and then they bury his son and everything else. Um, that's all just really epic in terms of like acting and everything else. And then of course the battles too are top tier, right? The battle at Helm's Deep is iconic, and then of course the March of the End. So there's just a lot of really amazing action, and acting and everything else. Of course, the whole trilogy is amazing, but Two Towers probably gets my pick for my favorite of the three.
I gotta go with that one too. Although I really like one because you kind of get, it's sort of like good vibes. The first one, like when it starts, and
Mhm.
you got the whole celebration in the Shire, and you kind of see a transformation of kind of like Shine Reserve Hobbit to now, they're all on these adventures of like taking this incredibly dangerous ring off to be disposed of.
Right.
But yeah, like two is just it just brings everything, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it brings the heat for sure. So big fan of two. Um but to your point too, I think Fellowship is very close, if only because, you know, the beginning of this trilogy, like of this endeavor is like was so important at the time, right? Like when that movie came out, the expectations were like sky high because Lord of the Rings is sort of like the seminal fantasy archetype, story, right? Like that's where all these narratives sort of originate from, or a lot of the modern fantasy narratives, right? And so to have that adapted into film in the right way, from the score to the setting to the acting, et cetera, Fellowship really got everybody's attention. Like everybody, as soon as that movie was out, everybody was locked in. Like before, there was obviously, and even after, of course, there were a few naysayers that were like, they didn't have Tom Bombadil, blah blah blah, right? But overall, people were like, wow, this is amazing. It's fantastic. We are locked in. We are committed to this trilogy. And then, of course, Jackson just continued to deliver, amazing hits the next 2 years and round out that trilogy in such a consistent way. So yeah, I think Fellowship
So,
definitely is close.
kind of sort of off topic, but like, how do you feel about the Hobbit trilogy?
Garbage.
Oh man,
I mean,
Joker!
okay,
Wow.
so okay, a bit harsh on the initial reaction, but I'll say I really like Martin Freeman as Bilbo. Fantastic. I think it was really well cast, and I really enjoyed Benedict Cumberbatch's take on Smaug. Like, there are definitely elements that are really good, but especially compared to like the grandioseness of the other trilogy and the source material they were working with, and how they kind of like stretched it out too thin with the Hobbit and the Battle of Five Armies, etc. It just didn't. The pacing was off. You weren't really as invested in the characters, etc. At least to me. So I think it was just coming off of that high of like, oh my gosh, Peter Jackson already delivered this amazing trilogy with Lord of the Rings, and now he's doing it again with The Hobbit. I'm so excited. And then The Hobbit arrives, and you're like, no, it's just not the same. So
Yeah, like I 100% agree. It's not on the level of a Lord of the Rings, but I still really like them. Like I still have fun watching them. I guess I think people, because the Lord of the Rings exists, it's like a reason to punch down on the Hobbit. But to
right,
me, it was just another way to kind of like revisit this world and get more of these characters. And yeah, to me, I still like them.
yeah, no, I get that. I think probably the most perplexing thing now, when the extended editions came out for Lord of the Rings and we saw those cut scenes where we're like, wow, like these add a lot of context, like this adds a lot of richness to the lore and to the narrative, etc., etc. When the Hobbit extended versions came out, like there were straight up whole plot points that were resolved that otherwise were not addressed in the standard cut of the film. Like what happened to Thorin's dad, for example, right? Like that was completely glossed over in the standard theatrical cut. And then in the extended version, we actually find out what happened. So that was that was another element of it that I think Peter Jackson was, and maybe it wasn't just Peter Jackson, right? It could have very much been like the marketing or the studio or whatever. But somebody out there was like, oh man, the fans loved it when you released those extended editions with an extra like 20 to 40 minutes. So let's do that again. And let's shoot these scenes and purposefully cut them out to release them in the extended cut later. But they cut too much and they cut things out that just otherwise the story doesn't make any sense. And so I think that definitely had an impact as well in the initial like theatrical runs, when people walk out of the theater like, what the heck just happened? Like I feel like there are these, missing plot points, etc. So I found that interesting as well. But
Okay, quick hit before we become a Lord of the Rings podcast.
yeah, sure.
Rings of Power, yay or nay?
I enjoyed Rings of Power. Yeah. I liked it.
I was mixed feelings. Didn't
Okay.
love it, didn't hate it. Like it kind of like I like a lot of things about it, but also some things are kind of a bit on the lower side. But I'm hopeful for season two.
I had fun with it. I really enjoyed young Elrond. I think seeing the younger Galadriel as well, and her sort of more like you know fierce years, right? Was is definitely cool as well, and just the dynamic between the elves and the dwarves to see that playing out. All of that's super cool. So I enjoyed those elements. There were definitely moments where I was sort of like groaning, like some
Oh
corny
my god!
dialogue and
Some of
like. the very heavy-handed, like ham-fisted reveals and that sort of thing. It's like, okay, but
Yeah, some of the
overall,
decision making that Galadriel makes is like, bro, come on. You're
yeah,
like the leader of the battalion and you're making these idiot decisions. What are we doing here?
yeah,
What's
exactly.
happening?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and so some of it was just like, but to your point earlier about like in The Hobbit, for me, it was just about a way to get into that world again, right? So it's just it's another avenue to see the that older time period prior to all of this other drama, and to enjoy the big set pieces and everything else. So, um, anyways, 15 minutes later, I hope you hope you Lord of the Rings fans enjoyed that little convo.
Welcome to our Lord of the Rings
Yeah,
podcast.
and now the great ring. Okay, now let's move on to our stories today. We've got 5 stories, starting with Switch 2 rumors. This is fresh from IGN.com. Switch 2 is rumored to have magnetic suction based on claims from third-party controller manufacturer. And this is from Michael Kripe at IGN. Nintendo Switch's successor console, referred to by many as the Switch 2, will feature magnetic Joy-Con controllers, backwards compatibility, and a host of other new features, according to the latest batch of rumors. These alleged details about the yet-to-be-revealed device first showed up from the Spanish outlet Vandal and were later cooperated by third-party Switch accessory manufacturer Mobapad. They say that the console will swap away from the railed lock method used by the current Switch and its Joy-Cons in favor of larger electromagnetic suction controllers. If the rumors are accurate, players can expect metal, SL, and SR buttons, as well as one additional new button on the side of each controller. Mobipad adds that the new controllers will still feature HD rumble. Nintendo hasn't officially pulled back the curtain on the Switch 2, much less confirmed what kind of controllers it will support. If the rumors are to be believed, it sounds like players will at least be able to continue using their old Joy-Cons and Pro controllers as well as their original physical and digital Switch games. Oh, please let me use my Pro controllers. I already have 2. I don't want to buy them again.
They cost so much.
I know. It would no doubt be nice to head into another Nintendo generation with some degree of backward compatibility, though it's unclear how or if the old Joy-Cons would be able to pair with the new console. Mobipad claims that the Switch 2 will continue to support USB-C, with its dock set to feature minor changes to its appearance while delivering 4K resolution. The site also references the new dock's adjustable damping bracket on the back, though it is possible they are talking about the Switch 2's kickstand. The device's screen is said to be an 8-inch display that supports 1080p. That's I think that's a miss. If they're still talking about 1080p on the native screen and not OLED, really? That
I
seems
mean,
odd.
I'm getting worried, Jeremy. All these little rumors here that we're getting like on a semi-weekly basis, they
Yeah,
feel like a wish list that we've all been coming up with. And if there's ever a company that will give you the opposite of that, it's freaking Nintendo.
yeah,
Like this whole magnetic suction business. Like I saw the video of how it works, and like it looks massive. Whatever this magnetic suction thing is, I don't know if you can miniaturize it in a way that makes sense.
right.
I'm no expert. I don't know. Maybe they can, but then like, oh, you're gonna need metal buttons. It's like they're not gonna give us metal buttons, Jeremy. They
Yeah,
gave us a freaking plastic over the LCD screen when the common sense says you put glass on there, Gorilla Glass.
yeah,
No, they gave
yeah,
us plastic on it. There's no
yeah,
way they're gonna give us metal buttons and this fancy ass mag. They're gonna give us the same old Joy-Cons, I think. It makes sense. People already got a
yeah,
bunch of them. It's a system they know and use. It's obviously it's inexpensive because they use it in the first one. They could just if they're going back to the well with the Switch design and not doing anything crazy, then just keep it looking the same. Slight resolution upgrade maybe, and with the bulk of the changes being internal, like a better chip or whatever. But yeah, I think this specific rumor is like way off. Although I do hope that backwards compatibility is a thing. Although it would not shock me if they don't do it.
yeah. I definitely. I think the most shocking thing to me would be if they did not incorporate backwards compatibility. I think if the Switch 2 doesn't have backwards compatibility, it's dead in the water. Like,
I think that they would give us digital backwards, oh yeah, because it's it's based on ARM, it's an NVIDIA chip, just like the Xbox Series X and the PS5 are basically
Sure.
built around the same sort of like design concept as the PS4 and the Xbox One. So I think but like my concern is like that cart where or I don't know, like the port where you put the cart in. That's
Mhm.
the one where they could be like, well, because we're pushing more textures and stuff, we needed a new port because you're gonna get a bigger cart because it needs to hold more data. And we don't wanna couldn't figure out how to give you another one.
Yeah.
But that's really because you want you to rebuy everything digital because it will be backward compatible in that sense.
Yeah, for sure. I, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what we will end up seeing from the Switch. I would, again, I would be perturbed if they didn't include the card as well. But I could
But
see
do you think
definitely
I'm right that
the
that's
digital.
a
Yeah.
realistic possibility where they're just like, yeah, the backwards compatibility is just digital only?
Yeah, yeah. You can, yeah, they'll say you can play all your current digital library. It can come with you, but you're not going to be able to use the card unless if they can keep the same form factor for upcoming games. If they can use the same size card and everything for Switch 2 games as well, then then
I don't know. I think they're gonna probably need a bigger car. Like they already complain a lot about how expensive it is. Like that's why so many of those games are like codes in a box.
mhm, mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
they may need something else to like
I
hold
wonder
on,
if they could do
more
like an
data.
SD card, kind of like an SD card converter type thing, where it's like if the slot is bigger, like if the cards are bigger, if in the Switch 2 they include like an adapter, right? So that you can put a Switch 1, card in it and it'll fit. Um
Oh man, I can already see them like counting dollar signs. Or like
I
these
well,
dumb
I'm
kids are
that's
gonna
what I'm
lose this
saying.
so much.
That's what I'm
They're gonna
saying.
sell
Like,
so many replacements of this.
right, exactly. You get one in the box and then the replacement's like $10 or something, or 20 maybe, right? And so yeah, they'll just they'll make
Not
20
even putting
million
it left
dollars.
over to the bank, bro. With that,
Yeah, they'll make $20 million in the first 3 months because people are going to lose that shit. Um, anyway, we'll see. We're all out here just kind of like throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what'll stick. I agree. I think we've got a bit of a wish list scenario going on, and ultimately, Nintendo is the boss, and Nintendo will tell us exactly what's coming uh, when they're good and ready. Thank you very much. Um, but in the meantime, interesting to see the continued uh, guesses from the game journalism world. All right, story number 2: the Fallout Prime television series popularity continues to impress. This is from Ryan Northrop at Screen Rant. Fallout sets impressive Prime Video viewership record. Fallout sets a significant viewership record for Prime Video, but one other show still comes out on top. Serving as an adaptation of the popular video game franchise, the new Prime Video series is created by Graham Wagner and Geneva Robertson Dworet. Fallout earned rave reviews from both critics and audiences upon its release earlier this month, chronicling a post apocalyptic version of America hundreds of years after a nuclear war. Per IndieWire, Amazon has now revealed that Fallout was watched by more than 65 million people during its first 16 days on Prime Video. Um, for those of you out there doing the math, that's about 4 million people and change a day. This marks the second best start for any series on the platform. As for the number one spot, Fallout loses out to, drumroll please, Lord of the Rings of Power, which brought the world of Middle Earth to life with its season one debut back in 2022. Um, as with the Rings of Power, one major factor working in Fallout's favor is the fact that it's based on pre existing popular IP. There are now 6 video games in the franchise, not to mention various spin offs, and this built in fan base evidently tuned in to watch the new Prime Video series. To debut to such strong numbers means that the audience extended far beyond just gamers, though, and that the series was able to appeal to those unfamiliar with the franchise. Part of this is surely due to the glowing Fallout critics' review, but positive word of mouth on social media and beyond would also have been a factor. Trailers for the show also teased an expensive, well realized vision of a post apocalyptic, retro futuristic United States, and the sheer production value on display is quite remarkable. It helps too that Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, the creators of Westworld, served as executive producers on the show, with both figures having some cachet in the TV space. And then finally getting viewers to tune in for one episode, though, is just half the battle. The strong Fallout cast, which includes Ella Purnell, Walton Goggins, Kyle MacLachlan, Aaron Moten, as well as strong storytelling and filmmaking, evidently encourage viewers to stick around and watch the rest of the series. It remains to be seen whether Fallout will continue to be popular over subsequent seasons, but the series is certainly off to a very strong start. Um, yeah, so we chatted about this a bit last week. You know, they've been greenlit for season 2 to the surprise of Population Zero, and yeah, I mean, I have yet to dive into the debut myself.
Boo!
I know. Look, I'm Vincent Adult Man. I'm a very busy adult with very many business things to do. No, but I really want to get into it. I've continued to hear nothing but good things, but it's pretty wild. This to me, it reminded me just how popular at the time Rings of Power was. Like I remember there was a lot of hype and buzz around it, but then I remember people kind of soured on it, and so it didn't really like strike me that yes, in fact, the show was extremely popular and still holds the top spot for like the most viewed show on Amazon Prime. That's pretty wild. Um, but yeah, for Fallout to kind of jump and hit that watermark, that's impressive. So
No, yeah, like I said, yeah, you're 100% right because, like, yeah, Fallout has a pretty storied history, and a lot of people have played those games. I don't think it's anywhere near sort of the relevancy of like a Lord of the Rings, so that it can kind of go up there and be in that conversation is really impressive. It shows just how good of a job they did in making this in a way that would appeal to just about anybody watching it.
yeah, for sure. Um, all right. So story number well, before we move on to story number 3, I'm excited, Fallout fans who enjoy the show. I hope that season 2 is awesome, and I'm looking forward to getting into the series myself. And I will rave about it, I'm sure, with Alan on a future episode. Story number 3. Game of Thrones MMO is reportedly in development. This is from Willow Row at Kotaku. We might be getting another chance to revisit our favorite people and places from Game of Thrones. That's according to a new report from Witcher and Game of Thrones news site Redanian Intelligence, which claims that an MMORPG set during the height of the HBO series is in the works. The report claims that the MMO is currently in development at Nexon. The South Korean publisher is responsible for games like multiplayer FPS title The Finals, which was developed by subsidiary studio Embark. However, the report from Redanian Intelligence did not include information on what studio within Nexon is making the MMO. Most intriguing is the alleged setting of the game. Sources claim that the MMO will take place in the middle of the HBO show, specifically between the 4th and 5th seasons. Setting an MMO, which ideally would run for years and have an extensive story, in the middle of an already occurring story that we know the conclusion of, sounds like a tough challenge for the game's narrative. It's an understandable choice in theory, but the show ended 5 years ago, leaving most fans disappointed. Either fans will be eager to return to an era of Westeros unplagued by the show's ending, or they will be too burned by the ending to have any interest at all. Only time will tell. Um, for those familiar with Game of Thrones, the game will take place at a time when Roose Bolton rules the North and Jon Snow still resides on the Wall. This will come into play as the game is apparently set in the North, with locations like Winterfell and the Wall to be featured. So again, it's sort of like a very nascent sort of gossip story. Not a lot of meat there, but it is interesting from a narrative perspective to have the game take place, as they mentioned, sort of midstream in the narrative, and not you know creating like a Knight of Westeros that starts from the beginning of all of this crazy political stuff happening, and seeing your character sort of navigating through all the major plot points from the beginning, kind of dropping them in the middle. It seems like odd timing, but
And also, like, I don't know if an MMO really like lends itself to telling that kind of story, or to like you said, to kind of just be thrown in sort of in the middle.
yeah, it seems like it would make more sense as like a standalone RPG, like just
Oh, what about like a Witcher 3 just expansion, like DLC that takes place in that world.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be pretty good. If you
Is there
had
like a game that you'd like to see it like come out as? Do you have it? Is there anything that comes to mind immediately?
like a format for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, yeah. Like what kind of Game of Thrones game would you like to see?
I think like an action RPG. I could see something like that where you can almost an action RPG that has some like Octopath Traveler kind of elements, right? So like I can imagine at the beginning you're given a selection of characters that you can play as, um, and it could be maybe controversial characters like the Hound or something, right? But like you pick one of those characters and then you can kind of follow their story chapter by chapter. But then at any point you can drop out from their story and then jump into somebody else's. Um, I think that could be pretty cool. It also would be interesting if you know because we know the narrative already. I think the most interesting thing to do from a narrative perspective would be to allow players to change the narrative, right? So like implementing some sort of robust you know decision tree mechanic where if you choose a certain path or another path, maybe a certain character's path is just cut off entirely right, like maybe the outcome of certain iconic moments changes as a result of your actions, right? So that's that's how I would envision doing a Game of Thrones game and still making it interesting is like, hey, you want to be in this world, you want to be involved with these characters, but maybe not necessarily have the narrative stick to the tracks because the narrative itself is what pissed people off in the last season. So give them the freedom to make it different. I think that would be really cool. Um,
Okay. Actually, I would like to see sort of either one of two, sort of like a civilization style game where like you take
mm-hmm.
over care of like one faction and then kind of basically try to win it for your side. Or like a Rome Total War style game where like it's more about the combat than it is about like your civilization, so to speak. I think like
Yeah,
that using those genres would be interesting to see a Game of Thrones game.
yeah. No, I dig that. I like that idea. But anyway, we'll see if it turns into anything. It is coming from Nexon, which their track record isn't the best necessarily. So once we get a bit more details, if there are any more details on who's making it and what their ideas are for the game, I think that'll be interesting. Honestly, if they take that narrative approach where the player can have some impact on how the narrative plays out, I think that's going to give folks the most kind of interest in going back into that world because they're like, okay, I want to go, I want to see what would happen if John didn't win this battle or if this happened or whatever, right? Like some key events to be like,
Yeah,
okay, now let's see that sort of alternative future and get to the ending that I'm hoping will happen, or that I would like to happen, right? I give them a bit more agency in that world. So okay, story number 4. The most ambitious Vampire Survivors update yet features immersive door opening action and world premiere train mechanics. This is from Tyler Wild at PC Gamer. A free Vampire Survivors update called Laboratory, released by surprise this week, adding a new challenge stage, bonus stage, weapon, and holiday themed character. A trailer shown today at ID at Xbox Showcase also promises immersive door opening action, world premiere train mechanics, genre defining kart racing, and fully rendered running animations. Um, Update 1.10 is Vampire Survivors' first quadruple A update, says developer Ponkel, poking fun, I think, at which developer was that said they were like a quadruple A studio? Oh, yeah, Ubisoft's recent
Ubisoft,
declaration.
Ubisoft,
Yeah, it's a long delayed pirate game, warrants a fourth
Skull and
A.
Bones.
Yeah, Skull and Bones. Anyway, so the update Steam news post includes the full details, most of which are hidden by spoiler tags. So there are 7 new extra achievements. There's a new challenge stage, new bonus stage, a new character, a new weapon with its evolution, a new passive weapon, and a new power up, Seal 3. Um, and uh, and then there are additional things here, but I won't read them out loud because they're kind of spoilery. But you can go and find the article on PC Gamer if you want to discover what that is. Um, So yeah, pretty big update. Looks really impressive, and honestly, I am continuously impressed by just how well Vampire Survivors has held up. Like this game has been around for a while now, and it's still crazy addictive, super fun, and the devs and the studios are taking like really good care of the game. The community engagement is great. So it's just a great example of a game like this done very well, and also from a business perspective just kind of shows that how lucrative it can be if you release a really fun game and then you take good care of it, right? You take care of your
Yep.
players. So yeah. um have you played much Vampire Survivors, Alan,
None
or
at all. So I'm
none at
kind of
all?
like, oh, cool. That sounds cool. Like I've heard a lot of good things, but I've never actually played it myself.
Okay, you need to dive into it for sure. It is tons of fun. Isn't super demanding on systems. I've been, I initially played a ton of it on my PC. I also have it on my Switch. I also have it on my Steam Deck. Um, so yeah, definitely recommend. Very fun time. All right, the last story. It's not even a story. I just need to talk about this discourse because it's so fucking stupid. Um, so the Stellar Blade censorship circus explained. This is by Ethan Gach at Kotaku. Stellar Blade is a PlayStation 5 sci-fi action exclusive about fighting monsters and saving humanity in a stylish post-apocalyptic world. So why are thousands of its self-identified fans signing a petition to free Stellar Blade from censorship? The answer is surprisingly complicated and kind of sad. Former Blizzard developer turned online angry gamer grifter Mark Kern recently posted a Change.org petition calling for altered content from a previous version of Stellar Blade to be restored by developer ShiftUp. The content has been censored from the original trailer posted by Sony, the petition read. We as gamers want this content back. We relied on it. We made the game the #1 pre-order worldwide because of it. And this is the true game we want. Oddly, the petition never explicitly says what the alleged censorship is. Sexy outfits that were nerfed in a pre-release update. Stellar Blade's main protagonist Eve has big boobs and a bigger butt, but some of her most revealing costumes received minor alterations from what's on the unpatched disc version of the game. And that's it. Like the article goes on, but that's pretty much it. So this has been the like occupying taking a lot of the auction and the video game discourse on social media the better part of the last week and change, and it's about as dumb as it sounds. So I will go on the record and say anybody who's out there like, oh yeah, like we're fighting for censorship rights, like this is how it starts, etc. No, it is not. You aren't fighting a good fight here. You are telling on yourself and showing very clearly who you are. And there are plenty of there are plenty of games out there for you on Steam. They're hidden, but you can turn them on. And like that's that.
I
Um,
mean, Stellar Blade is still that game,
it is.
arguably.
It is still that game. Like it is 100% still that game. A patch
Plenty of
of fabric at the
yeah,
cleavage area isn't going to change the fact that you still get fan service out the wazoo with this game. Like
yeah, plenty of titty to go around in that game. Lots of it.
it is the stupidest thing. Like I just
No,
absolutely
at this point, I
perplexed.
feel like this basically grifters are like, oh well, here's this group of people, gamers who spend a lot of money on the hobby. Like we clearly have disposable income because we buy OLED TVs, we buy Steam Decks, we buy these consoles, we buy RTX 4090s that are like 2 grand. Like we can squeeze some money out of this one. You know what I mean? So like any place where they can pick out something to be even remotely upset about, they're gonna use it, and then like, oh, well, go to my Patreon so I can keep, I don't know, helping you be mad about stuff. And so that's unfortunate, but I mean that's kind of like pervasive in just about every online space these days, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it just sucks that what should be is like, yo, they went from being a mobile game developer to making what most reviewers are saying it's a good console game, which is unexpected. Most mobile developers kind of fall flat on their face. So that should be really what's being talked about, not this.
Yeah, for sure. Um, anyways, so I'm trying not to give it any more of my attention or energy, but just, if you see this discourse online, that's where it's coming from. Take it or leave it. I would suggest leave it. And check out the game yourself if you're interested. I really enjoyed Bayonetta. I think Bayonetta is actually like a super, I really enjoyed the sort of stylish approach and obviously over the top, you know, insane action sequences, which also featured a, you know, sexual kind of main character, but she kind of like leans into that as like a, you know, not even as a trope, but sort of like a defining characteristic. And, you know, the developers really leaned into, like Platinum really leaned into that, and it was awesome. But yeah, I mean, it seems silly. So, I have something for the deals corner, but Alan, I don't know if you had anything on your radar for folks to look out for this week.
Nothing that I saw that was like interesting. Like they're quote unquote deals, but I'm like, it's not really what I would call it. It was just like a $10 price drop or something. Nothing crazy.
Okay, okay. Well, I got two things actually. Octopath Traveler 2, I believe, on Amazon is still about 38% off or so. Um, so I think it comes out to like just about $40 or maybe a little less. This was, in my opinion, one of the best games of 2023, and it got completely buried because of all the other games that came out in 2023. Uh, it's fantastic, amazing turn-based RPG, really great combat system, awesome music, etc., etc. So it's amazing. Check it out if you haven't already. It's on sale.
Just to throw it out there, it's been lower. I believe it's been 29.99 in the past. So if you have a little patience and you got a backlog, you can wait a little bit and get yourself save even a little bit more money, and then
True,
use the other 10 to like I don't know buy anything else
true.
that accepts cash for stuff.
Go buy a coffee and a pastry, and then play your Octopath Traveler 3 or 2. Um, so yeah, that's out there. And then on Steam, there of course are always sales going on Steam, but just wanted to shine a spotlight on the publisher sale from Nihon Falcom. So they are the producers of the Trails of Cold Steel franchise, as well as the Ys franchise, which is one of my favorite action RPG franchises of all time. Um, so there are a lot of really great games in the East franchise that are on sale, including Memories of Celceta, Oath of Elgana, Monstrum Nox, Lacrimosa of Dana. So like basically all of the East games so far, they're ranging anywhere from $5 to $15. The most recent one, Monstrum Nox, is about 40% off. So I think it's around $30 or $40. So yeah, if you are a fan of Yeast, you should check it out. Add games to the library that you might not have already. If you have not played Yeast before, uh, I would highly encourage you to check it out. And I would say, Oath of Felghana or Memories of Sosetta are both good places to start. And again, they're both about 10 to $15. There's also Yeast Origins, which is $5. So that could be another fun one to check out as well. So, uh, yeah, that's our deals corner. Without further ado, that's all that we have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. So until next time, I'm Jeremy.
I'm Alan.
Keep gaming, everybody.
See ya.